I'm getting hungry, so I better get chopping. Hi, I'm Susie Dingle, writer, garden coach, and landscape designer, bringing you information and inspiration to help you improve, utilize, and enjoy your outdoor space. Today, I'm bringing in some bounty from the garden and making a Christmas Eve meal. I have planned a meal that's very simple. It's soup and bread, roasted vegetables, and some of the beautiful green leaves that we have to eat, and a little surprise guest from the garden. I will set the table and we will sit down for a lovely Christmas Eve soup meal. I'd like to show you the ingredients that go into this meal. There are some roasted or cooked organic chestnuts that I have not used before, so I'm really curious to see how this is going to turn out. I'm just using an organic vegetable broth, some butternut squash and leek. And I did see one recipe online that called for nutmeg, and I may or may not use that. I'll have to taste it before I decide on what kind of seasoning I might want to use for this. I'm also going to be topping it at the end with some creme fraiche and probably some herbs that I'll collect from the garden. But again, I want to taste the flavors before I make some final decisions on how to season it. This meal should go very quickly. I'm going to be chopping up the butternut squash and simmering it in the vegetable stock. That'll take about 15 minutes. And I'll be chopping up the leeks and putting that in as well. And I'll throw in the chestnuts at the last minute because they don't really need to cook anymore. Then I'll be blending that soup. Now, I'm using an immersion blender, which I really love. I use that all the time. And if you don't have that though, and you don't have a blender, you could always use, like if you have I have a vintage like masher sieve thing that's so fabulous. I mean, you could do that, pour it in and smash. You could also use just a masher and get it. It doesn't have to be pureed, I don't think. You can just get it a little bit mashed up. That's my plan. We'll see how it works. I'll show you a few steps along the way, and then we'll be eating, the finished meal. I also want to show you the vegetables that I have planned for roasting. These are some of my favorite vegetables to roast. I have these golden beets. They are so sweet, and I like them because they don't bleed as much as the red beets when you cut them. I always like roasting a little bit of onion. I had some cauliflower that we needed to eat, some beautiful parsnips that are very sweet. There's a lot of sweet things going on here, but I think a little bit of that will be okay. The end of my Brussels sprouts and some mushrooms, garlic, and a butterball potato that from my garden. I still have probably about 100 potatoes out there that need to be harvested. They're underneath plastic. In the Pacific Northwest, you can store your potatoes in the soil as long as you keep it dry. That's number one, and completely covered so that they don't get any sun whatsoever. Even though there's very little sun out there, there would be enough to turn the skin green, and that produces a toxin, and you don't want that. These German butterballs are good keepers anyway, so that was a good one for me to test that out this year, and I'm very happy. First I cut the butternut squash, this is the way I like to do it, into rings, about 1 inch thick, and then I can come along and just chop off the rind very easily like that. Doesn't have to be exact. Then I just chop these up, cube them, and they'll go into the broth. I think about a cup of leek is going to be about right. So let's clean this guy off. Get rid of that outer piece. I'm going to use just the white part in here. Yeah, we'll see about how that is. I need about a cup, maybe a little more. Rough chop. By the way, all these scraps, all this stuff, I'm saving up for a soup stock. I'm going to open this up, see how it is. And how best to get them out. I have a wonderful collection of old colanders and sieves. There's one for every purpose, and we're just gonna go ahead and rinse these guys off. There they are, the chestnuts, and I'm gonna save a couple of nice ones to slice and put on the top, but otherwise they're gonna be chopped up and they'll go in the pot. Here we are, just some nice little slices. The rest, we'll just do a rough chopping. Keep that one, those two are nice. Ooh, so is that one. Okay. Ooh, they're nice and soft. Not mushy soft, just easy to chop. So easy, almost squishable. I think those will need just a little bit of warming, not much cooking. That's the easiest chopping I've ever done. I suspect the finer they're chopped though, the easier it's going to be to blend it down. 6½ ounces for about, I'd say, a cup and a quarter, roughly. While the soup is simmering, I'm going to cut up the roasting vegetables. The parsnips, I do not bother to peel at all. Just cut them into nice chunks. And the fat portion, or the wide portion rather, I just cut that in two. And then that seems to be roughly the right size. I try and either make it the right size so that they match in cooking time. Now the golden beet. You'll see why I like these. Very little mess. They don't bleed very much. How pretty that is. Wow. And I just do usually about a third and then in half, so we have roughly, oh, I don't know, what would you call that? Bigger than a walnut, about sized piece. Again, you want to make them roughly the same size so they cook evenly. Of course, the Brussels sprouts can just go in the bowl as they are. Same with the mushrooms once you've trimmed the ends. Gotta trim the ends of them first. A note about the mushrooms. I rinse them off because I feel like I rinse them off quickly to get the dirt off, and then I trim the ends. I didn't grow these. I wish I had, maybe in the future. And then I'll just, actually when I roast them, I leave them whole. I don't cut them at all. And then I'll throw them in the bowl now to dress them with a little bit of oil. But then I leave them out of baking for a little while. I'll put them in the last 20 minutes or so. So with cauliflower, I just come in and kind of slice the stem first and then break it apart.
into, you know what, I'm going to roast them at this size because I find that that's about the right size for those other chunks. That's what we're doing. And then the potato. Let's see how this guy turned out. Because hopefully it looks good inside. Ooh. German butterball. Oh, that smells like earth. It's clean, but it does smell like earth. It's so lovely. Oh my, what a treat. Fresh potatoes, just picked. So again, big chunks. The onion. My mother was from New Orleans, so I get to say onion. Yes, she was born and raised there. Sang there. Yep, that was my mama. Cooking, southern cooking, the healthy southern cooking. Let me tell you, lots of, not tons of meat, mostly vegetables and rice and some bits of seafood and yummy jambalaya, etouffee, gumbo, making me hungry. These came from a CSA. I did not grow these. I did not grow the leeks either. These came from, I'm not sure, they're USA grown, but I did buy them packaged. Onions I cut into nice little tight wedges. I may do some garlic. Maybe. I may not need it. We'll see. And I do these, throw these in the last 30 minutes or so. I don't put them in to cook longer than that. There we have it. I'm going to drizzle some toasted sunflower seed oil. It's organic on these. And then also some plain, just because I don't want it too toasty. Don't need a whole lot. And after I do that, I will put on some smoked salt, and I'll distribute that. Not a lot of that either. I'm not going to put on any herbs, nothing, because I want the flavor of the vegetables to come through, and I think that simpler is better tonight. This is looking nice and soft and cooked, and goes the chestnuts to be warmed. Then we'll blend it. Be very careful with these immersion blenders. They could give you a wicked cut. Now I like to use, I'm not going to turn this on, you can watch videos on it elsewhere, but I like to use a very deep and straight-sided pan when I use the immersion blender, and then I just go up and down like that. After a couple minutes of immersion blending, look how creamy and beautiful. It's sweet, and I think the creme fraiche will help to mitigate some of the sweetness. It doesn't need any seasoning at all. It's got a lot of flavor. I've distributed the vegetables onto two different pans. The ones that don't need as much cooking, the mushrooms, onions, and the cauliflower going on, they'll go in the oven later. Then these are the vegetables that take a little bit more time. Now, this is, by the way, a very fun thing to do with kids. They're in a big bowl, so I pour them onto the pan and then I distribute. So I keep them grouped. Makes it a little bit easier in case one is cooking a little bit too quickly. I can easily scoop them out. Kids love doing this kind of sorting. It is so much fun. So good way to include them. And of course this is cold. This is not hot at all. This is before it goes in the oven. So ta-da. Fun thing for them, and they can learn their vegetables as they go. Into the oven about, I'll turn it up to 425, then I turn it down to 400 and maybe 375 depending on how well it's going. This is mustard and mizuna that's growing in pots right outside my door.
Thank you so much for joining us. We want to wish you an abundant and joyous Christmas, holiday season, and a new year. I'm going to serve up our soup and plate up the vegetables, and then I'll show you some details up close of the arrangement, which happens to be peas from the garden that are in flower and just developing really, really small peas. But let's get our food going, Dan. How about that?
Good idea.
Okay. So this is just the mustard greens and mizuna from the garden, and then the roasted vegetables. I made some crostinis, I guess you'd call it. It was just some day-old French bread, and I used olive oil and herbs and did that in the oven. Just dried them out. On top of the bread, we will have fromage. I believe that's how it's said. It's a French cheese. It's almost like a brie in a way. Then we have some ginger brew with a little bit of pomegranate juice and pomegranate seeds in there. That looks totally refreshing and yummy, doesn't it, Dan?
It does. Yes.
First, I wanted to share with you this vintage, or at least it's pretty old, I think, china that I got. I thrifted that. On top of the soup, we have some roasted chestnuts that I think I have pictures of that earlier. And then a little bit of the creme fraiche, which is like a sour cream, only not quite as sour in my opinion. It's a little more like really whipped cream in a way. Whipped cream meets sour cream, I guess, is how you call it. Please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up or subscribe if you did. And if you'd like to see more of food and flowers, please let me know. I sure enjoy setting the table for occasions, special occasions, and really for every day. Until next time, I'll be dreaming of you in the garden. Bye.